Greetings, welcome to Terror Prime Live. Darth Nonymous coming to you. Vornach joining me. We are here at Terror Prime headquarters. Joining us today is our apprentice Deso from down in good old FLA, Florida. How's everything going down there?
Day by day, and just living through it.
Yeah, that's about all we can do. Yes, so welcome to the show today. We are going to be talking about combat. So basically just anything that we all like to do. If you really get down to it, the only reason that we've even started doing this is because we wanted to fight with each other using swords. And so the lightsaber provides that there. So we're coming from various places, sport, martial arts, historical, sources, all of that kind of thing. So we'll try to go into a good smattering of those things. So if you have any specific questions, and of course we'll show you how to use some of the stuff that we do in our training, how that's used in combat there. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat here. We will be periodically checking it out and making sure that we've got the questions there. So anyway, what shall we start with? I guess basically what we're talking about, and when we're talking about combat, is non-cooperative or competitive two-person work.
Usually two.
Usually two people. You can go to more in certain circumstances, which we can talk about in a bit. But most of the time, what we're talking about is one-on-one combat, a duel, obviously from that word duel too, because that's kind of, well, that's kind of all we do nowadays with these kinds of things. There's not a whole lot of big gang fights happening on the street with swords. Although I do remember one time in Chicago, me and my friend were driving to get a burrito. We hit a very large intersection. If you haven't lived in Chicago, you know there's very large intersections. There's a lot of space in there. All of a sudden, from two streets come two groups of people, of young men, yelling at each other very, very loudly, and they start throwing sticks and rocks at each other. And boy, yeah, that was harrowing. I can imagine if they came out with swords or machetes. Woo! Woo.
It'll be more dire.
Yes, so we're not going there. We're still trying to have fun. As we've said, we like to fight, but we also don't like to die. So that's where we are.
Friendly, competitive interaction, unscripted, unchoreographed. Goal being to be the one who lands the effective hit.
Right, and that's going to depend on what you're doing. Like if you're just doing it for fun between you, you guys can come up with your own rules and boundaries for the game that you're going to play. You can count touches. You can say look at critical hits. You can do all that kind of thing. That stuff is really good for practice, for just doing it at your school with your classmates, all that kind of thing. Sport, you tend to want to try to constrain things a little bit more. You want to keep the rules manageable so people can A, follow them, and B, people can arbitrate them so they can say what's against the rule, what isn't against the rules, and so everything. Now, usually what the rules tend to do is they try to even the playing field a little bit, right? And so what they're usually looking for is a way to discern skill, and usually within a sport, it's a handful of skills. We want to see this, and this. So if you take fencing, for example, you have very restrictive rules that dictate what you cannot do because there are very specific skills and things that you want to do to become successful in that sport. You look at HEMA and you have a much different kind of scenario where you have lots of different rule sets, all kind of focusing on some one different skill or the other. You're starting to have that with lightsaber now as well. For us here, we do the whole kit and caboodle. There's nothing really that's off limit to us. Rule sets are, they're just these kinds of things, and maybe that's the first piece of advice we should give. Try to learn rule sets and learn a lot of rule sets. Try to fight within these rule sets. Try to use these rule sets as your guide. Try to work within those frameworks, because the better you can do that, and the better you can adapt to somebody else's game, the more chances you can have of going out and playing with other people. Whether it be in competition or just, joining up with some of their groups or something like that. So lots of different rule sets. Try to learn a lot of them. Try to play a lot of different games and all of that, because the lightsaber is a very, very versatile instrument. You have anything to add?
Different rule sets will put different constraints on the space you have to work within, the techniques that are available to you, how free form it's going to be, or how narrowly defined the available techniques, and it can run a range from just complete freestyle. We've got like the full armored combat where the goal is to knock the other person down, to a lot of modern sport sword based arts, kendo, and sport fencing, where there are more specific rules about where you're fighting, how an attack is launched, when an attack is actually valid, and even if you land, you may not have a valid attack that is landing, and everything in between. So your rule set can help define the specific approaches that you want to practice. It can help define. We've in the past we've talked about like hand hunting, head hunting games, which are really good for teaching accuracy, for teaching control, and so you can use a rule set to help define and refine the specific skills that you want to develop, as well as bringing people into the game.
Right. So now, that being said, rule sets are not generally teaching tools, and they really shouldn't be viewed that way. They're games like anything else, and they're going to require or favor one skill over the other. And it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. You don't know whether or not it's the rule set that's kind of dictating it, or whether or not, this particular skill is dictating the rules. It really depends on what you're talking about. Now, the other thing that we should talk about before we go into a little bit more of the sport aspect of it is you have different kind of things. Just like you said, we have different targets. So like we play games, head hunting, hand hunt, which is you can only hit the hand and you can only hit the head. That's just going to, encourage certain types of, actions, right? We want you to go in deep for that head hunt, right? We don't want you to rely on, on these kinds of things, there. Is it realistic? God, no, not at all. But what it does is it just, does that. Now, is that a teaching tool? Not really. That's almost like a test. It's like, I will teach you certain things, and then this is the scenario in which you can use that particular technique. I'm trying to think of a good example outside of
something that just kind of sparked when you were talking about this, and then you bring it up. This is kind of a test. I like to look at training as like your vocabulary, your sentence structure, that kind of thing. The different rule sets in this particular case can be different books. You got your Shakespeare, you've got your Rick Riordan, your whatever, and then the actual test, being the combat, can be your comprehension. That could be a good parallel for that. How well you understand these particular rule sets to get through those.
Right. And so it's we bring analogies of music in here a whole lot. So it's music. You learn your scales, your chords, your basics. You learn a song, all this kind of stuff. And certain songs are going to require certain things from you. A good example, a non-traditional example, is a guy named Professor Longhair, who has a very, very specific kind of chord structure that he uses. And the reason he uses that is because he learned and composed a lot of his pieces on a piano that had missing keys. So those keys just weren't used. The result is you can recognize a Professor Longhair song a mile away. The first chords that start going in, and I think if anybody heard the, I can't sing it or anything, but the you've heard it 1,000 times. If you've ever been to New Orleans, it's like a constant soundtrack or whatever. But all of that kind of comes from kind of circumstance, and when you limit yourself in certain things, there. Now you can use it as a teaching thing, but I can't tell you just to say, here's the head hunt. All you can do is hit the head. Have at it. I got to teach you how to get there, right? That's the whole purpose. Sure, you could fumble your way through it and learn it by trial and error. But why? We've been doing this for so long. There's so much written on it. There's so many people who are experienced with it who can give you advice and tell you mistakes to avoid and things to focus on. There's really no reason to go, and it's very, very tempting with us, especially when we're starting. Oh, I got a lightsaber. Let me go fight and do this, and I'll just, and okay, yes, you will go a certain distance that way. You will go a certain distance that way, but there is a limit to that distance, and if you only work on your intuitive biases, that will cease to serve you fairly quickly. Another reason why you want to learn a lot of rule sets so you can play with a lot of people, so you don't get into those ruts, right? If you're playing with a certain group of people, and this certain group of people just so happens to fall for one of your tricks most of the time. So amongst this group of people, it's a very high percentage technique. Now you go to another group and all of a sudden that trick doesn't work anymore. Well, now you have to draw on your skills and your training to come up with a new strategy. Rule sets are limitations, very much like reality, right? In reality, if I get into a fight back in the day, let's say we'll pick a random place in Europe, 18th century, where was it good? France? They still duel in France?
France, Italy, England.
Yeah. So, and somebody wants to attack me in the bar. Well, I've got people around, I've got chairs, I've got tables, I've got a little light, I've got this, that, and the other. Even if he wants to duel with me, right? We're going to either be on a street, in an alley, in a field. You're going to have terrain, all of this kind of stuff. So that's the reality of combat is that you can't do what you want when you want to do it. And a rule set places some good arbitrary ways to help you do that. So you don't just go in there swinging for the fences, doing bam bam from the Flintstones, right? Because yeah, sure, that you're gonna get bam 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 bam, and you will hit a certain amount of stuff. Yes, absolutely. But it's just like you will hit a certain amount of things if you just take a machine gun and go, but you will also waste tons of ammo. So diminishing returns.
Yeah. In this analogy, of course, ammo is your personal energy and ability to continue fighting.
Right. Or even in this case, it's even ideas, right? Because if you don't have a system, you don't have people that are thinking outside of the box or outside of your box, right? There may be things that you are doing that you don't know you're doing, things that you could be doing that you don't even know exist, right?
Having some kind of structure or guidance starting you off, you'll have a half a dozen different ways that you're going to swing a sword.
Right.
Because that's That's what you've seen in the movies. That's what you've seen in books. And you're going to miss any nuance that goes along with what's happening when you're actually moving in that way. And we've all seen the issue of we've got a series of pictures, individual pictures, and some cryptic writing. How do we turn that into a complete movement,
Right.
and then a counter, and then an interaction?
Oof, the walnuts are falling. Yeah. Because we're all, if you're allowed to just rely on the things that you know, you will stumble upon things. Oh, okay, this works, right? I hear, the novice is a very dangerous person. Yeah, okay, in a certain sense, we always talk about this. Yes, a beginner will do things that most people don't expect, right? And that is something to keep in mind. Most people who have any experience whatsoever do keep that in mind. So I would not count on that benefit. Right.
It's a nice apocryphal story. It's not
Yeah.
really a benefit.
Right.
Anybody out there who's watching this who has instructed before, who
Yeah.
has fought with a beginner before, you will know this.
Yes. And then of course there's always the issue of, like we talked about trading blows. Oh, I hit you first, right? But I hit you on the foot and you hit me on the head. Even in a reality situation, who loses in that one, right? So you have to keep that in mind. Now, sport tries to kind of mimic that kind of stuff, put that on there and tries to even the playing field so we can all, play together. Lightsaber, at least the way we do it, and in our rule set, the ASL and whatever the American designation for that will be, is co-ed. We don't split up people by male, female, or any gender identification. Everybody fights everybody. As things get
Great
larger,
class.
you might have some weight classes, something like that to organize certain things. But with weapon work, weapons are very good equalizers. And that's why they were invented, and that's why they've been used all this time.
We might talk about the idea of like age categories,
Mhm.
but we're not far enough along with enough people to define that out yet. And our experience has shown that we've had some adolescents who've shown up
Yeah.
in the like 14 to 17 range who are remarkably adept.
Absolutely.
And are exceedingly comfortable fighting people who are twice, thrice their age.
Yes, and size.
Yeah.
And they're very good at it. Something occurred to me when you started that. I lost it.
Something that I will tell anybody that I'm training is if your opponent is holding a weapon, they are a threat, and never discredit, because we'll have, you'll have your little kids who want to come up and, they're like 5, 6 years old and they're holding a stick or whatever. And it's funny and whatever, but that helps to drive home, especially when it's, a trainee's child and they're like, here, hold this. That's an easy reminder. Even that child, were it a competition, could be threatening if they're holding a weapon in their hand. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah. So it came back to me here. So because we are taking this kind of approach with all these different ages and groups and stuff like that, the chances that you will be fighting somebody who has infinitely more experience than you or no experience whatsoever is very good. You will probably fight both of those types of people if you enter any type of tournament. That can be good. It can be challenging. I would say that scenario favors the novices and the new people, because people don't like to lose. I understand, but you learn more from losing, and the more you lose at the beginning, the less you lose later. And you don't want that to reverse. You don't want to win all the time at the beginning, because then the first time you lose, that defeat's going to be so crushing. you know. But anyway, so that's the kind of issues that we have going with sport. Now let's see what we got going on here. Hello, everyone. Yes. So another thing that we should mention is that sport is supposed to be fun. It is. We are looking for enjoyment. As Jared said last week, pleasure test all of your stuff. If you're not having fun with it, if you're taking it too seriously, if you're getting upset, if you're not feeling good afterward, attitude adjustment, right? You are playing with glow sticks. Okay. For us, it's easy. It's difficult for when you're using swords because you hold a sword. Oh, you feel cool, right? Oh boy, it's a sword. I feel like a knight. And so that kind of gets there. It's easy to take yourself seriously with a sword that is very dangerous. You should not take yourself seriously with a glow stick, with any of these lightsabers, because that's missing the entire point.
It's not to say that the things we do with them aren't representative
Right.
of valid
Right.
practical weapon techniques.
Right.
But it's a plastic glowing tube.
Yes. And let's be honest. Even swords right now are not any more relevant to street combat than lightsabers. So there you go. As I say often, the greatest chance you have of getting run through with a sword is in a play.
Yep.
So so when people say, oh, stage combat isn't real combat, well, that's the only place that you're actually risking dying from a sword wound. So there you go.
It's one of the few places we're not wearing armor.
Well, that's the whole point, right? You're using something. It's got they won't have edges on them. They'll have
still
point.
stiff metal usually.
Put a big rubber point on there and make it look good.
They'll be blunted, they'll be dulled, and they are still dangerous. Because the rules of stage combat are designed to keep people in safe locations relative to each other and the weapons.
Right.
But there are times when that does not happen. And
Right.
I've seen an instance of a stage sword cutting through, I think it was about a 3/4 inch iron pipe.
Yeah. Just remember, a crowbar isn't sharp either. So sharp doesn't necessarily mean or not sharp. Blunt doesn't necessarily mean safe. We've gone into that before too. But anyway, so let's get to some actual combat questions. Do we have any on the thing? If not, we'll go over to Desto and see if you got anything we can throw out here. So anyway, well, I suppose what shall we do? We could, well, how about this? How about we show them a couple of exchanges in both the rule set that we use, priority rule set, and freestyle.
Sounds good.
So we'll go here, and again, ask any questions you might have, and we will. And you too, Dessa. Yes.
Of course.
Okay. Okay, so we're pinned there. Last time we did this, it went away from us, and we got people just watching us. Hopefully that will not happen this time. So
start with the priority rule set.
Sure. We will start with our priority rule set. For those of you who are unfamiliar, you can only attack, or you can only score when you have priority. Okay? Priority is achieved by arming. To start a point, you engagement arm by taking the entire weapon behind you and then forward to your target. Simple arming happens inside those points, and that one you just have to take the tip behind your midline. And really what it is, it's your cervical spine where it joins with the skull. That point you're going past, right? So if I'm leaning forward or whatever, I have to go like here. I don't have to go all the way back there. All right. So that's what's there. You'll see kind of how, and then we'll just show you, and then we'll go into some freestyle, which does not have priority, and then we'll kind of discuss the differences there. So, all right. All right, so I got him on the leg. In our system, that is a 3-point hit. So it's 3 to me.
You may have seen I was bringing my blade down. I hit him in the leg. I was attempting to draw into parry, but because I had not parried yet, he still had priority in the strike, which is why his point counted.
His did, yes.
Accidental strike was not counted for anything.
Right. Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. I was going to point that out, but I forgot. All right. Ooh, you got me in the head.
Nice hit.
So that's 5 points for the head. So now he's 5. I'm 3. Did I get you on that first one?
I got a parry and I swung back and I felt a strike on my back.
Okay, so then you carry that first one then. Okay, so then you got me in the leg. So that was 8. So that's now 8. Ooh. All right. So he tried there for a salvo, which is you hit one target of 1 point value, and then you go for a higher target before they there. However, I was able to parry that strike to the head, so he only got this 3 points. That is now 12 to 3. 11 to 3. Thank you. I missed the salvo. That's 3, so that's 6. 11 to 6. Oh, and he got me in the head. So that's 5. He got me here for 3, but then he went up to the head, so that's 5. So that is the 15 threshold for our thing. So Matthew takes it. Vornach, good work. Excellent. All right, so that's a little example of the rule set. It's not great, working with an injury or whatever, but hopefully that will show you a little bit about how it's going to play. Now, if we go to kind of more of a freestyle thing, this is what most people, I think, intuitively do over here. All right.
The end result here, or not the end result, but the rule that we usually put here is whoever receives the first hit, that ends that particular phrase.
Right. We're basically going to the first hit. All right. All right. All right. So he got me in the leg. I, at the same time, got him across the neck. So again, if we're just having fun, we're going through it. We just kind of put that in our head, right? It's not like a dominance thing or anything like that. We just notice, okay.
Double hit. What can we do to prevent a repeat
Right.
of that kind of thing? Because we want this to be clean. We want to be placing ourselves in a strong position.
Yes. So we don't want to have double hits. We want to try to be clean and try to get those hits. So okay, so that was another double hit. And you can see where this goes. And you can see when you're playing this way, double hits become a big thing. And again, double hit. Another double hit.
Okay.
Praise music there.
A double hit, but a double kill.
Well, so that's another good point. You get into the habit of not stopping, or you should get in the habit of not stopping immediately, kind of continuing on with that other rule set, but we'll go into that here in a second. Okay. Another double hit.
Not a practice.
Yes. So you can see, let's kind of come back in here. Go through a little bit. Okay.
So with less constraints, you see where the some of the weakness
Yes.
in your technique might be showing up.
Okay.
We kept double hitting each other
Right.
without, so we were landing good blows, but we weren't really effective at protecting ourselves while that was happening.
Correct. And so that is one of those things. Our priority system tends to go on the premise that we want to keep those to a minimum. And as you see, when you're doing it that way, those double hits will tend to happen a lot, especially at the beginning. We were able to keep them a little bit under control near, but then they popped up back at the end. Now, granted, we haven't done that type of sparring in a very long time, so we're a little out of practice of that. Now, what I said before was that the rule set that we use with priority gives you, it makes it, what you have to do is you have to imagine that the point doesn't stop the moment that you get a touch, right? You have to continue going because you can still get a salvo. There's still a little bit of time afterward, right? Now, that's good for reality too, because once I get a hit, I don't necessarily want to just come off it and be completely, compliant or defenseless or just let my guard down.
There are circumstances where you may think you've landed with a good blow and you have not, or your partner doesn't perceive that one has landed. One aspect of the priority system is it is designed to be refereed. So there's supposed to be an adjudicator and potentially some line judges as well to help keep track of the order of play. However, You can do it with just a partner, and just be mindful of how the rules are working, where the priority is starting, who has it. And watching for that opportunity to salvo.
Yes, exactly. So that can be right a little bit different. Okay. Anything from you over there?
A lot of rule sets, not just the priority one, but rule sets in general. They call it on your honor. You know, it's on you to be honest. Were you hit? Yes, I was hit. No, I wasn't. And why? And it's good for both you and your partner. It's a way of learning that trust and helping out. You mentioned earlier fighting multiple people. We call that big fish in a small pond. You know, you get really good fighting these 5-6 people, and then you face somebody from 2 towns away and they just run you over because they've done things you never thought of. Definitely, if fighting is what you're going into this for, and you know you're here today, so it must be, fight as many people as you can. Go in with that mindset, I am going to learn something new, and just go with it. In the priority set, like you mentioned, it's definitely designed where you don't do the double hits. There are sets that have a priority-ish thing that allow for an after hit. So you might get your hits, but then somebody else is coming at you. And if you don't defend, you still don't get that point, or you don't get as many points if you don't. So it's, once again, paying attention to what rule set you're doing.
Yeah. Now right, double hits come into play. Also with critical hits. I would suggest this though. There are no actual rule sets that are on your honor. An actual rule set should have officiation. If it doesn't, you know, you don't want the players to be keeping score.
There are, I mean,
That's a practice scenario.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Sparring and practice.
Yeah, the group that I have a lot of experience with, the Society for Creative Anachronism, it is an honor system.
Right.
You know, you are the one who's responsible for acknowledging your blows, and there are marshals there who are there to keep an eye out for safety concerns, but they don't adjudicate.
Sure.
And it's for all that it is a worldwide organization, it can also be a very small world experience, and people who have a tendency to not comport themselves with the rules of the list appropriately do eventually find themselves being talked to by senior members of whatever the group is.
Sure. But I would say that that's not really a sport where you have all of these other concerns with rules and competitions and you know the adjudication that comes with that, where you have, like, you know, teams that have put, you know, just tons of money into developing their team, right? And then going out and you don't win anything.
No,
Yeah.
you win bragging rights.
Right. So
Tournament stuff. Yeah. You'll get little plaques or
Yeah.
a hand
people's
etched
attitude
knife or whatever.
and you've got a prize.
Yeah, it is a sporting martial art.
Yes.
And again, even within society, depending on what type of event you are having, there are going to be rule sets that define how a combat is going to take place, whether you're doing one-on-one bouts on a list or you're doing larger melees. So again, we go back to rule sets will help define how the action is going to unfold.
Right. Okay, we got a question. How do we account for height difference in our rule set? We do not. Everybody just fights. Now you can choose weapons and weapon configurations that will enhance your stature, whether that be big or small. You can also come up with tactics that will help you. Now we are small enough now that we don't have too much going on where that's a big, a big imbalance, right? My teacher, Mayu, would always complain that he would get into these Daolu tournaments where he'd have to do forms. And he's a very tall guy. He's, just a little shorter than I am. But he would look at all of the other competitors in his division. He's like, I'm competing against little monkeys, right? They're all 3 feet tall, right? Of course they're going to be, they could jump over, and so size is something that you want to keep in mind. If you're a smaller fighter, that's something you just have to kind of keep in mind.
That's the world that I live in.
Yeah,
as someone who participates in these activities. I'm about 5'6". Most of the people I fight are at least a couple inches to a foot or more tall than I am. And so the priority rule set that we use, the only condition that puts in is that there's a certain limitation on weapons. There's a maximum weapon length and a minimum weapon length.
Right.
And so that does not address disparity in reach, which is what we're often talking about between taller and shorter fighting partners.
Yes.
The freestyle rule set, we don't have any particular. We've done saber staff, we've done saber pike, we've done double weapon, we've done long and short. But if we take it back a few steps further, going back to kind of the foundations of martial arts in general, some of the basic principles are distance and timing.
Yes.
And you need to learn how to use time and distance to your advantage based on your size in relation to your opponents. I regularly fight people who have longer arms, use longer weapons. Some of them are very, very good at leaving me on the floor, thoroughly defeated. And they're getting less effective at it because I keep going back and playing with them. So what we take into account is that that's something for you to work on in your training.
Yes. Do they have weight classes or anything like that other than age for fencing?
As far as I know, it's just age.
Yeah. And gender. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, you can have, now, yes, it is. If you having less reach is definitely a disadvantage. We're not going to try to gaslight people to say, oh no, you can be quicker and harder to hit. No, you're not. We're not talking Smurf size, right? You're still human sized. You're just as hard to hit or just as easy to hit as I am. So whatever. So keep that in mind. As you're going, if you're finding a lot of trouble because you are, I don't know, you can't quite get in, right? You can't get into the, and actually, why don't we do this? Where's the here? Which one's longer here? This one. Okay, give me the longer one. So I'm going to give Matt the shorter one here. And we are going to go over here and talk about some strategies for shorter fighters.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because I was even going to mention if, reach is a thing. Turtling isn't exactly what you want to do, but in a priority system, getting that first block gives you that advantage, lets you take the priority and let you take the initiative and step forward into your opponent without them having that ability to strike you. Just an example.
Yes. Okay, so make sure that I got the pin on. There we go. Okay, so hopefully we'll stay here. Okay, so here's our reach disparity, right? I can get him. He can't quite get me, right? So there's the dynamic we're looking at right there. So the important thing, for one thing, is there's a couple of ways that he can do it, right? I'll go into one way, then he'll go into another one. The first one is he can get inside my weapon range, right? That usually means just kind of, coming in, but he can just try to get that hit, right? By coming in, making sure that he knows where my weapon is going to be, and then be able to come in that way. So if I'm here, and yeah, we'll play with two hands first. We'll do it one hand here again too, right? So I come in here like this. He can parry it there, and then he wants to come in here. Now, the thing is that as he comes in closer, it becomes more difficult for me to defend, right? So I come in like this, he parries, and if he's in close, if he's in like this, okay, I'm still kind of working. If he comes in even closer though, if we're here, and he gets to here, well, now I'm in big trouble, right? And even just don't even do anything, just come in just further down. Here. So now I'm here. Now I can't quite get around it, right? When he goes for his second target, I don't have enough room to move in here. So if he disengages, his hands are kind of in the way, right? So we get into a bind here like that. Now, we don't generally use binds in lightsabers. if you were using a regular sword, that's what we would recommend, right? He comes in, I'm here like this. He's not going to stay out there. He's going to come in here, and we're going to play here, right? That's what we're going to do. We're not going to stay. He's not going to stay out where I can get him and he can't get me, right? So you want to make sure that. All right. So that's my tip.
In the end, that is the goal, is to get inside where you can hit. Another way to do it is to change the angle between you and your opponent. And possibly strike at the extremities. So as we're coming together, I may be coming off to the side, and now here I can reach his arms as easily as he can reach my body. So I've evened out the range in effect.
Right.
When we're talking about the lightsaber, a strike is a strike. And
right.
They're all equally effective.
Yes. And that's essentially, yeah, that's basically a different way of being able to get into somebody's range. You can change the angle of the attack. Remember, we're using straight lines here. So all of the geometry that you learn in the beginning of geometry of lines and angles and everything like that, all of that applies here, right? It's the same thing here. I'm let's say he's coming in with a thing here up at the top, right? Now, one thing is he can start, let's talk about second intention. He can throw strikes to me that he doesn't intend to actually reach me, right? He can do things that will just get me to do a certain action, which will then set him up for something else. So go ahead. I parry up like that, and then he, right. So in real time, okay? Now, if I defend against that, go back again, right? Okay. Okay, it's still pretty even, right? We didn't, right? Now, let's say he just goes for the target. How is he going to get that target if I'm going to do that here, right? But what? Okay. What he has to do is he has to use that angle part, right? So when he comes in, boom, he's got me committed here. So now if I go like this, I have to step this way. So he knows where I'm going, right? You want to be careful of just thinking that you can do this. If he strikes, you can just do this, right? Because most of the time, people are just going to follow you, right? So, right, at least they should. Do you got another one for him?
No, I like where you're going with having multiple intentions.
Yeah.
It's
Follow that,
very
follow that direction, but take it through the priority set. So like you have priority, Anonymous, and he's got to take it from you. Show that one.
Oh, well, that's just easy. All he has to do is parry my strike, right? So as I'm coming in like this, he just has to parry my strike. Now I have, or no, he has priority. So now he has to come in. Now, that's where, if you're shorter, this rule set evens that out for you, because I can't really take the advantage of my height because we still have to do our turn taking, right? So I come in like this, he parries. I also have to parry, right? But he can start to move in on me and get into an uncomfortable place, which he did a few times, if you remember back when we were doing the rule set, right? So as we're here, I come in. This gets really, really hard for me to move, right? So he's basically using his smaller stature to move in close and then move around me to where I cannot effectively defend myself, right? So there, we're not saying that's not difficult. We're just saying it's possible. All right, let's see. So do we have anything from the peanut gallery here? Welcome, Anthony. So you came in here, so I think we've got the one question there.
You did mention earlier in the difference between sport versus real. Of course, everything we're doing here is for sport. We're not trying to hurt each other. You know, we want everybody to go home and have had a good time. And the anecdote of no legs, but what would be, even if it was like a required moment where you had to pick up a stick, what would be something like that? What would something like that look like by comparison?
Like what?
Like if, you know, out in the world and you had to pick up a stick and defend yourself, but as an example of sport versus real.
So if you're just using this as a self-defense weapon.
Yep.
I would say number one here. I've got the gear on. You do it. Just turn it around.
Yep.
So this is how I would do it. That's how I would use the lightsaber as a weapon.
or even just a stick or an umbrella. I like umbrellas as weapons.
Umbrellas are good.
Yeah, there we go. I'm of two minds about sticks as self-defense weapons. Simply because it takes a lot of effort to debilitate somebody with a stick. I have taken some horrendous strikes with it. You saw one of them,
Yep.
right? I got hit smack in the face with a waxwood staff, just wham right there, right? Didn't knock me out, didn't knock me over. I just had to walk it off. There I was. Were it in combat, I don't think it would have slowed me down. It probably would have just gotten me more revved. So there's that. I would say the best thing about a stick in a self-defense situation is this. Is just poking somebody and getting them away from you and stuff like that. And then running, right? Getting away as best you can.
A self-defense scenario where you have been attacked, your goal should be to get away.
Yeah.
With as little harm as possible.
Good answer.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and traditionally, a lot of times sticks have been used as analogs to other weapons anyway, right? So some sticks aren't necessarily even meant to be used as sticks. They're meant to be used as swords, You take those techniques, bring them to iron bars, that kind of thing.
We weren't able to recall the exact date, but to our knowledge, the last duel with a sword was Aldo Nadi, I think it was.
Mhm.
It's a fencing instructor. My recollection is this happened maybe back in the 50s.
Yeah,
And
we're not quite sure. If anybody knows what that is, go ahead and
please
throw it
look
up
it up.
there.
There's some good written material about it. It gives a great example of what happens when you move from training to use a weapon to actually being in a fight with a weapon.
Yep.
I think the only other thing we're going to come across is there are some cultures where if you dig around enough, you can see people going at each other with short weapons like machetes and clubs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's going to be a different scenario from most of what we're teaching and most of what we're practicing, because we aren't practicing to go out and get into a fight with a short sword with somebody.
Yeah.
And
Well, technically we are, but in
there
a sporting sense.
are things that we practice that are derived from those purposes,
Mhm.
but we don't practice in an environment that supports becoming really skilled in doing that. We practice. We were talking about this ever since we started. We practice with rule sets. We
Mhm.
practice with putting constraints on how we are playing this game, in order to support or promote different aspects of how the interaction is going to go.
Right. And each of those, while a rule set doesn't necessarily represent a reality, and it's not supposed to, each rule set will represent some aspect of reality. And therefore you should probably, again, look at as many as you can.
On the subject of rule sets, while we're there, of course, you do SCA, which is full armor, depending upon what era you choose and things of that nature. The ASL set requires a significant portion of armor compared to some of the other sets that are out there. There are a few that require no armor. Did you want to say anything about well, I think something should be said about maintaining your safety if you're out there, no matter what rule set you're doing. If you are not ready to step in there, step into something you are ready for and take it slow.
If you are doing any kind of practice with another person and you are both wearing weapons, you are both hopefully wearing safety gear. Safety
Yes.
gear appropriate to the scenario that you're working on.
Yeah. The reason we've gone, obviously, this has been our thing since the beginning. We're the ones who brought it in here, and we've had this conversation 1,000 times. The fact of the matter is gear allows you to practice realistically. You don't have to check yourself. You don't have to pull your punches. You don't have to do too much. Now, the rule sets allow you to, exert some sort of control. And obviously you want to exert control when you do this. This is why, generally speaking, we follow the traditional rule of you have to have been doing this for a certain amount of time before you can start fighting or sparring, because the differences between those, if you start off too early, you end up building a lot of bad habits that you just kind of have to root out, and becomes, sort of a difficult process, which oftentimes makes people, stop practicing.
The more practiced you are doing something incorrectly, the harder it is to learn to do it correctly.
Right. And so that's why we always saying, like, use some sort of instruction. Use our instruction. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be complicated. Learning just how to throw good strikes and stay in good position is all you need. Work on distancing. The actual skills that you need to do this are very simple, but they're difficult to hone because they take a lot of patience.
Every bit of that.
Anybody want to add into that? Deso or Anthony?
Anthony, say something. You've been quiet.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, good to see you.
A jaunty tune for us tonight?
Oh, it feels good to be back. I saw the notice and I actually had some time. So I figured I'd come by and say hello to everyone. I miss you guys.
Excellent.
My schedule's a lot better now, which means I can hang out.
All right.
So if you guys have any questions for me, I don't even know what you're talking about. Feel
We're
free
just
to ask.
talking about combat.
Combat. Well,
Yeah.
I actually did have a comment. I did listen to you guys about the blunt force weapons, sticks as self-defense.
Yeah.
I actually agree. A lot of the sticks that you'll find in nature are not gonna withstand force. You know, you clock somebody with it, the stick is probably gonna shatter.
That's a good point.
However, if you have a stick that's made out of a good hardwood and you know how to do it and you know how to maintain distance and so on, you can jack somebody up pretty good. And I know from experience, sadly. But yeah, like what you have there, I mean, if you just randomly found something out of the woods, go for it, guys. Wow. Hey,
Yeah. So this is why sticks you find in the woods aren't weapons.
go for it.
Yep, I'm on screen.
Exactly my point.
That's not going to do nothing.
Yeah, if you're out in the woods, if you're out in the everyday world, a stick like that, it's really not going to do you much good. And let's face it, I don't think I haven't seen in 51 years on this planet anyone walking down the street holding a stick that could, you know, that was made for that, you know, to hit people. Unless
Unless you're going to a martial arts class, and then the chances that somebody's going to get you then probably the
Right.
whole getup is probably going to dissuade them from that.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have. I mean, training blunt force weapons, I think, is a great idea, but you got to know that, you know, if you grab some random thing that's not made for that and you hit somebody, it's going to fail. So that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah.
But it's also right that for example, in the art that I do, you know, the philosophy is train the stick to learn the knife.
Mhm.
So, you know, you're training with something that's safe, that you could bang up and everything, but the techniques transfer over to the blades. Wanted to add to that. That was well said, Chad. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I would say like sticks. The thing is that there a lot of people who are good at stick fighting like sticks because you can subdue people without really doing a ton of damage to them. That being said, as a self-defense weapon for people who don't, who you know, who are not like stick masters, right? It's like I said, it's hard to get a stick to impart a whole lot of force. And this is another thing too that we want to mention here about combat. Lots of people on the internet talk very big about this thing, but the fact of the matter is, even people who train martial arts, very, very few of them possess that part of the self which is required for you to haul off and hit somebody at full force to hurt them. Most people unconsciously don't want to hurt other people. You have to train that out, right? In martial arts, if you find somebody who's not like that, you kick them out of class because they're going to be hurting people. But that's, you know, that's probably one of the important things about that combat itself is chaos. Anything can happen, right? And you don't know how you will act if you've never been in a confrontation like that. right? You just don't. I don't care how much you sparred. I can tell you how many people I've trained up, they've sparred, everything like that. They get into one street fight, they get torn apart because just they don't know what to do, right? They're used to training with a partner who's not there to hurt them, who's not there to they're just there to kind of, look good in front of the teacher, right? They're not there to take their money and to cause them grievous bodily harm. And so they can't, it's just foreign. Never underestimate that, right? That if you haven't experienced it, you don't know how you will react. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we talk about a lot in our school is the reality of the street. And
oh, hold on. Keep going, but I'm gonna go get another stick because I think that that the camera went away from our demonstration.
Okay, all right.
Just keep going.
But yeah, he's gonna go get another stick because how many times can you hit Chad and not enjoy that? But yes, in our school we talk about it all the time. We talk about the reality of street, the reality of life or death, and it's a completely different mindset. You're not dealing with rules, you're not dealing with the safety of mats, you're not dealing with the safety of friends or even a sparring partner that cares about you. When you're on the street, you're dealing with someone who probably doesn't mind if they kill you. So yeah, when that reality hits and you have that adrenaline dump of the fear, if you're not trained for that, most people sadly will crumble. Okay, and on with that stick looks a little better, Chad. I don't know.
It does.
This is a math test. This isn't a stick test anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be more impressive.
Okay, if Chad passes out,
Taking it on the dome.
It'll be
Here we
live.
go. Right.
there we go.
Yep. Well, it broke there.
Ready?
You ready?
I think we might have lost camera again. Oh, there it goes.
Oh,
Oh, you gotta do it again. Do
The
it
first
again.
one I think worked.
You see me?
Yeah.
We can see you. It just froze right before the second strike, so it didn't happen.
Oh, I think it's.
Well,
Try it one more time. But
This is
the
let me try
one-handed
the other
stick.
camera. Let me try the other camera. We'll get this.
This one's we've beaten the dead wood off of it.
Yes.
So
Uh-oh.
this one might actually stay intact on this strike.
We'll see.
Ready?
Ready. Did that work?
that worked
Yes.
perfect.
Okay, there we go. All right.
That's what I love about you guys. It's the skeptical thinking. It's, hey, let's put this to the test. I love that. That's why I've been hanging out with you guys for so many years.
We do like practical application and testing.
Yeah. And generally, we just like to know, right? We're not really looking to and that's why we're into the historical stuff, because that's stuff that you can't really know. It's real juicy that way. All right, so we're a little bit over here, but let me check to see if we have any more questions.
Let me go back and mention something, because we were talking about getting into fights, and the idea that the only way that you really know how you're going to do is if you actually get into a fight. We're not in any way endorsing anybody go out and get into a
Correct.
fight.
Oh no, this is knowledge that you would love to die without. Believe me.
You can go through life never knowing how
Right.
you would respond in a real
Life and death.
situation against another person. Be overjoyed.
Yes, you have won the game of life. If you want to experience this kind of stuff, you can, right? Just throw on the gear, get some friends, pick a system, train up, do it. like I said, we love to fight. That's obviously right. But we also know that training is what makes it better. Not just better for us, or not just better, like doesn't make us better, but it makes it better for us, right? It makes us more adept, it makes us enjoy it more. We have more freedom, right? It's, you know,
The more knowledge you acquire, the more practiced you become, the more nuanced the game gets, the more fun it is.
yes. All right. So that seems like a pretty good spot to go this evening here. I don't think we have any more questions here. So yeah. All right. So yes, let me thank Desso and Anthony for joining us here this evening. Thank you to all of you watching out there in YouTube land or on Facebook or wherever you are enjoying this streamed entertainment. Please like and subscribe. Do all that YouTube stuff. It really helps us out. And
Share with your friends. Go, everyone who's watching, please go share this with 2 friends.
yes, share with 2 friends, especially friends that you like to do this kind of stuff with, and go out and have some fun. So there you go. All right. So from all of us here at Terra Prime, patience, practice, perseverance, happy sabering. All right.